7:04 p.m. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Lori Bourgeau, present. Elsie Cook,
Here.
Maureen Hubbard is absent. Allison Kemp, here. And Jacob Nicosia is currently absent.
So I know Councilperson Nicosia is on his way. I'll make a motion to excuse Councilperson Hellman.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, supported by Bourgeau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Bourgeau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. We have two public hearings under item 5. First is the repeal Article 2, Chapter 38, our food and food establishment ordinance. I'd move to open the hearing at 7:05 p.m. Support. Motion made by Cook, supported by Kemp. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. The hearing is open. And Mr. Madore, do you want to give a brief summary of what we're doing here for the public?
This came up when we considered the township's food truck ordinance, and I thought maybe we could move it into the food and food establishment ordinance. Then when I delved into the food and food establishment ordinance, it was outdated about 40 years ago, and there really wasn't any way to save anything in it, so we thought it's best to just get rid of that, and then we then go forward with the food truck as the standalone ordinance. So at this point, we did the first reading last month. We just want to get rid of it, and there really was no aspects of it that were relevant anymore.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak for this public hearing? Seeing no movement, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:06 p.m. Support. Motion made by Cook, supported by Kemp. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries. We'll let the record reflect that Councilperson Nicosia has joined us. Okay, the second public hearing is ordinance number 420, the mobile food establishment ordinance. We'll move to go into that public hearing at 7:07 p.m.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Bourgeau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, this public hearing is now open. And Mr. Madore, do you want to provide a brief recap on this one as well, please?
Yeah, we discussed this a little bit last month. We tried to, at the request of the fire department, to keep the ordinance similar to the one that the township has passed. So a lot of those were just changing the Oxford Township to Oxford Village of Oxford in the ordinance. And then further on under 8C, we're going to take up that more in further discussion. Well, some of the things I looked at, we want to change a little more deeply.
Great, thank you. Okay, does any public wish to speak under the public hearing for the mobile food establishment ordinance at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move to close the public hearing at 7:08 p.m.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Bourgeau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. Move on to item 6 on the agenda, call to the public. So you may voluntarily state your name and address, and please approach the podium if you wish to speak under public comment. Anyone like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, item 7. So item 7A are our correspondence and department reports. I'll move to receive and file item A1 and 2.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Cook, seconded by Bourgeau. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. 7B is motion to approve the minutes, the bills, and other reports, and the bills in the amount of $274,788.21. Motion made by Cook, seconded by Kemp. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Kemp, Nicosia,
Yes.
Peugeot,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
and Helmut is absent.
Motion carries, thank you. So we'll move on to 8, unfinished old business. Let's start off with 8A, the residential inspection ordinance. Mr. Redor?
Yes, so this is what we discussed again last month, and I narrowed down and I took what the council had come up with to add and subtract items from the inspection scope, section 10104. And those items are highlighted in the draft in your packet. So the 100 amp minimum service, the proof of the dated inspection from the contractor for the heating system, no more than 180 days old. And you can see the other ones in there about the carbon monoxide, proper grounding of the electrical panel and stairways being in sound condition. That was pretty much all we had as far as changes to it from what was there in advance. I think part of the discussion last month that we talked to Mr. Davis since then was, do we want them to be the residential rental and inspection ordinance? Do we want to have the residential inspection and the residential registration ordinance? So we already had the registration ordinance on the books. And I guess that was kind of our discussion tonight is, do we want to keep them separate? And I think Mr. Davis will have some thoughts on that.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
The-
Go ahead.
There, it's certainly your decision. I think there are some benefits to having them as two ordinances, because I think some of the obligations and rights under the inspection ordinance are different than the enforcement rights of, under the registration. Under inspection, we have to have provisions in there that address the case law from Ohio that called into question these types of ordinances, because you have to have a due process in place when you're going to, or when you're rejected from entry in the court process to get a court order to conduct the inspection. So I think the ending of the rental inspection ordinances differences drastically from the ending of what should be the registration ordinances. So I think you should have it as two. A lot of communities bundle them together. It gets a little convoluted. But in your case, I think you already have one that's been enacted. It might be cleaner and easier for everyone if we just had another ordinance.
We talked last month about Terry can put these right next to each other so they're
Yes.
easy to,
Okay, in order? Why is-
yeah.
You mean
Yeah, so
structurally
you're not
within,
having those-
structurally within the ordinance scheme, have them close by.
Right.
Yeah, we can do that.
So last month we met, and we heard from McKenna, who did administration. Do any changes need to be made to this draft to reflect what we talked about with them managing it for the village?
No, the only thing this references the fee. The fee is part of the fee schedule, which I did print out today. I think Terry took a copy of the fee schedule. I think you guys wrote a while back even as well. So it will be placed in the fee schedule. Along with the other
And we do
items.
have language in there that says, the village and or its designee, so that McKenna would be the designee under the ordinance.
That way, if you're amending the fees or whatever, you don't worry about amending the ordinance.
Great. Yep, Kim?
In terms of the fees, I don't have a problem with what was presented with McKenna. What I would like to change was taking off the $10 village administration fee. That's our one small way of subsidizing it. I would be in favor of removing that.
Mr. Davis, the definitions of a dwelling unit, which is A1 through a lot of letters and numbers to get to what a rental unit is there a way to reword that, or is this kind of what we've had to land? It's just to me, it reads like a very indirect way to get to what is subject to regulation, yeah.
Well, we battled on this during the registration, and I was a little bit hesitant talking to Joe I don't want the definitions under the new ordinance to be different than the registration ordinance.
So this is what's in the registration ordinance.
But on the other hand, I agree with you 100%. We beat this up a little bit during the registration registration ordinance to make sure, you know, there were carve-outs, because it's mostly a listing of exceptions, you know, we have a lot of exceptions in there, and, so we could revisit that and try to make it simpler, but we would have to amend it back in the first ordinance as well, because they have to be the same. We're gonna call for you to register, it should be the same set of definitions as the inspections.
Makes sense.
So a rental inspection is dependent on the registration at the end of the day, right? So it makes sense to kind of get it registered and,
Right, I mean, the model goal of the program is we get we get everybody to register if they have a rental unit. And then we implement the inspection against that list. Are we ever gonna get everybody to disclose, you know, their rental units? I don't know. But the inspection doesn't necessarily say we can only inspect those who register. If we determine that there's a rental unit, regardless of whether they're registered, we can still conduct an inspection.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to speak to that too. In the timing, inspection timing, it talks about once they shall inspect a rental unit and related premises within 60 days of registration as required or as soon as thereafter as practical. So if we get somebody that they registers and we've already got this program set up, it might be a year or two before we get to that inspection. So
Right.
even though it says 60 days in there, yes, if McKenna was sitting around all caught up and something came on, then they might be able to get to it soon. But in most cases, especially in the first couple of years, it's going to be, you know, a couple hundred a year, or 150 a year or so before we can get to all of them. But we do get them to crop up out of the woodwork. That, you know, somebody calls in and says, "Oh, I'm renting now this part," and we realize, or Zillow was a great thing. Get on those guys finding rental minutes and things like that, or for listings.
and it's gonna make sense to keep them separate then, because they'll never technically be registered unless they have both of them, right?
You're correct.
And we can't do all of them this year.
So what's the next step would be to move to set it for a first reading?
We did the first reading last month, I remember, this was a public hearing, and we could do a second reading tonight, but we don't have this formatted, I don't think probably the right number, so I have to adapt it, so.
I don't think we did a reading yet.
You
I
gotta-
thought we did the first reading on this one, no? It must have been the other ones, food truck. And-
That was- yeah.
That's right, it was
We
food truck.
could do a
That's
first
right.
reading tonight, and then we could touch up the language and bring it back for a second reading. I still think on the list of what is to be inspected, Joe still needs a little word tweaking there, but the concepts are there for you.
Any other questions from council this time
So we would just be moving to set it for a second reading,
for first reading?
for first reading, yes, because we didn't do that yet.
Right.
Yeah, we were still formatting it, that way we can have formatted the right number, sequence and stuff.
And then we'll be able to show you where it will be positioned within the scheme.
So voting yes is just voting to allow a first reading.
Yes,
Correct.
at the next meeting.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, to schedule the first reading for rental inspection, residential rental inspection ordinance, number 418, Article 5, for the next regular village council meeting.
Second?
Okay, motion made by Ken, seconded by Nicosia. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Bordeaux,
Yes.
Nicosia,
Yes.
Cook,
No. Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to B, food and food establishment ordinance, the second reading to repeal the chapter 38 in its entirety. This was the one that was set for a public hearing just earlier this evening, and so now we're on the second reading, so I'll move to approve the second reading of the food and food establishment ordinance to repeal code chapter 38 in its entirety. Is there a second?
Support.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Kemp. Any discussion here? questions? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote please.
Bordeaux,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Nicosia,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on C, 8C, ordinance 420, the second reading of the mobile food establishment ordinance. Let's get a motion on the table and then we can discuss it a little bit further. So I'll move the second reading of the mobile food establishment ordinance. as
Second.
presented. Motion made by Cook, seconded by Nicosia. Okay, and any discussion?
Yeah, so the copy in your packet, for the most part, the yellow highlighting was the change-outs, the markups we had already seen. The red text was things that I delved into deeper looking, thought we needed to address. The one right on the very front page, section 1D, talks about alcohol and liquor. And they shall not serve alcohol, liquor, or allow consumption of alcohol or liquor in their service areas or dining areas. So again, my comment there is the service or dining areas in the village of Oxford Social District are deemed to have all the appropriate permits for the consumption. So if somebody set up a grab cap and they're in the area already, so I just think we need to somehow implement, maybe add that language in there so that dining areas in the village social district are deemed to have all appropriate permits for the consumption of alcohol sold by approved social district licensed businesses. I think this is the way to just kind of dot the I for that one.
So is that's basically, the restaurants are allowed to have their alcohol,
Yeah.
and sell their alcohol, and the food trucks are also allowed to have food in the area?
Right. Yeah, we don't want them to be having policing their dining area. If their dining areas are outside there, and your grab cap, if somebody walks with a grab cap is sitting in the common area with an alcohol drink, that's not really a problem for the food truck. That area is allowed to have that happen already, like by the state of Michigan control. So I think just by making a note that we know that that's permitted, they're deemed to have all those permits in place. The other one on G, if you work your way down, let me step up. Some of the other ones are new too. So the original one, the fire department was doing some of the enforcement of travel lanes and parking and road right away and things like that in the township ordinance. And I think that might work for them. They have a wide area. But like for instance, in downtown parking area where some of our food trucks might be, I think it's more appropriate to have the police department be, they already patrol the area. If there's an issue with somebody parking or a food truck blocking traffic, they're the ones I think that should be enforcing that, not the fire department. They're there, they're already patrolling. If somebody has an issue with it, I think it's better to have that do with the fire department. Okay. So that's kind of what I did on those next couple ones on the service area and the dining area. And number D, prep and storage, the ordinance the way it was written, the food should not be prepared, sold, or displayed outside the mobile food establishment as set forth below, and then they had some caveats as to how it should be displayed in the shelving and stuff. I know for some of them, they come out and they unload and they might have some stuff stacked outside. They're only gonna be there for like 4 hours. And I don't necessarily think we have to prohibit them to leave everything inside the truck if they're only gonna be there for a short term. That's my personal thoughts. I don't know how you guys feel about that. One of them was since about pizza, they were actually cooking outside of their behind Grab Cat. It was Cairo Pizza, it's a local place. So they would be prohibited from that if we adopted the way it was written. So I thought, maybe if we allow them to do it for a certain time frame, never allow it to be set up overnight. I don't know anyone that would, but perhaps. And especially when you think of like areas, this registration for the food trucks would cover places like the private beach out there at Oxford Lake Subdivision. They might have a food truck that wants to set up there for the whole weekend and just stay there. I don't know. They would be in violation of the ordinance even if we take up the suggestion that I have, that they could allow to prepare and sell food and stack it outside for no more than 8 hours. They would probably pull their stuff in at night, but the truck might sit for overnight, perhaps, I don't know. They may have to leave every night to empty out wastewater and refill. But I just didn't want to make them apt to be violating it on day one if their normal process is to have, they set up a thing outside and cook on it. There's one north of town, I mentioned to Jack a while back, I see he cooks, have a couple miles north of town, just north of Dunlap. And I see they cook outside and stuff, and it seems to be it's very popular. The guy's been there a while, it seems.
So would that cover, changing that language, would that cover if it wasn't an actual truck, but if it was a trailer and or tent situation?
The
I
tent
have
is
seen
only
that.
a problem with the fire department. You're not allowed to do any cooking under tents. They're not allowed to have even like potpourri candles and stuff, if I remember right, no heating, no open flames under tents. Now, unless, I don't know if the tent being flame resistant matters or not, and that, I know they're supposed to be flame resistant regardless, I don't know if that has anything to do with cooking. But that could be an issue right there that they have with the fire department. And again, if they go through the process and get inspected by the fire department, that's maybe one of the things the fire department can make sure that they're aware of. Hey, your truck is fine, your accessory trailer is fine, do understand that you can't, if you do set up outside, that you can't. Maybe they won't say that because the ordinance, the way it was written, you're not allowed to set up and prepare outside. The ordinance is written that everything has to be prepared, sold, displayed.
Do we know what the reason for that was?
No, and I apologize for not catching that the first time around.
Chief, do you remember?
I'm assuming we just don't want everyone camping out long-term and overnight, I would assume, and you want them to clean their,
Yeah, and you don't want it to look like it's just a disaster every drive by either, right? Because they got foods and plates and stuff blowing around or
businesses
stuff like
and
that.
parking at the end of the day too.
I mean, you're trying to keep the food truck being the food truck and consolidate the operations inside as much as possible, food truck. But you don't want to drive by and see the food truck and then 5 tents all around where over there they're cooking this and over there they're cooking that. And it begins to look like some big camping area or something.
Wouldn't that be permitted though under this, as long as they're not there, they
As
set
long
up and
as-
tear down
as
every
long-
day,
As long as they don't keep it like that.
Yeah.
overnight,
Overnight.
they can come back. So
If
if
you-
they have permission from the business owner every day, they can
Right.
set up
Right,
something
right.
that's
Yeah.
just forever.
And I only know of the one north of town that I've seen, but the one that came downtown in our area behind Greg Apple's Pizza Joint, where she would literally set up her pizza oven thing outside and cook.
Yeah, that's at the open air market too, we have here,
Yeah.
there, so,
And so right there, if we adopted the way it was written, they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
okay.
And so I was trying to find a way to allow that within reason. You know, make it a time frame, you know, no more than 8 hours. If you're gonna be something going on at the market from noon to 8 or something like that, yeah, they can set up and they can cook out here, but they have to box up and be gone.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's really not a food truck in my mind. I mean, I don't know if they consider themselves a food truck. It's kind of just like a mobile food business, like
Yeah.
a pop-up. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's,
And most of them are self-contained and do other cooking inside
mhm.
that I see, but some do have outdoor stuff. So that was just one of those things that I thought, well, okay.
Do we have a definite, no, wait, licensed and operable motor vehicle or trailer, which includes any commercial kitchen equipment. So maybe that place we're talking about wouldn't even fall under this ordinance. So do we need to make accommodations? I'm only concerned about changing it for, like, there's probably a reason why that was in there, but I don't know what. But it makes sense as there's a reason why it was in there. And if this tent business doesn't even fall within the definition of the ordinance, I don't know that I want to carve something out for them.
So, yeah, the way it was written before the strikeout on number G, or letter G, one there is, all materials, food, and supplies must be stored within a mobile food establishment, or maybe adjacent to a mobile food establishment, if in an enclosed container. So some would say, well, I have my supplies with it, but they're in a box.
Yeah, it just seems like that's good practice to keep, so I'm kind of leaning towards keeping it, because I don't think they would be excluded anyway. That's just my 2 cents, I don't know what council thoughts are, but, because this really pertains to the motor vehicle or trailers with commercial kitchen equipment. And that's not what I've seen, that's the non-food trucks around here, it's not commercial, it's not trailer, it's none of that really. So this is the second reading, so
Yeah.
we could make changes still.
Oh, yeah. And you can adjourn the second reading to the next meeting.
Yeah, so that's why I just wanted to kind of go through some of the updates I had, so you're all aware of those and have a little discussion, and then decide which way to go, I guess.
Okay.
To me, 8 hours is fair, you know? If we want to extend extend it to 12 or something, you know, we always could, but it seems pretty fair.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we don't need to put in 8 hours, because I think that we should just keep the materials, food, and supplies provision as it was.
So keep it tight in the truck.
Right.
That's what,
I'm just afraid of
the spread.
a mess.
Yes.
Right, it begins to look like, I mean, we all know what a food truck looks like.
Right.
If you want, to the extent possible, everything to be contained in a food truck,
Yeah.
allowing some storage of materials if it's in containers outside of the food truck.
Yep.
Yeah.
So who is making the call that say the pizza business is a food truck or is not a food truck and is not applicable under the ordinance? Because I think someone from the fire department would go check to see if they had a permit. I don't think they're gonna be making the distinction. It feels unfair to put them in that position.
Well, I think they are you, I mean, if you went to inspect one of these units and it was just a tent with a pizza oven underneath it, what say you?
She had to have like an inspection license for the year. She has a,
She has one?
Yep.
Okay.
But it's not a food truck.
trailer, because everything holds.
They do use a trailer, but they don't operate out of it.
I
But
think
their
they might,
supplies
their
are,
supplies
so
Mhm.
I think they're still under that classification.
Okay,
In my mind, I think it gets really, really sticky if we don't include everything, because then you have somebody pulling up in a food truck and saying, oh, well, I'm just gonna pop a tent, so I don't have to classify it as food truck.
The county calls it an STFU, Special Transitory Food Unit,
yeah, that's the Department of Ag's
so that's like
definition
truck or
and
not
license.
truck kind of thing, so those are all kind of, I don't know if we should be calling it an STFU instead of a truck to match the state.
Yeah, because they have to get a permit from the local health department as well as the Department of Ag that permit you're referring to there. Most, I think all of them have to have both. Maybe some are exempt from that STFU one, but I'm not sure. But a lot of them have to have both.
All right, what's next? Section 2B.
Two A actually, you know, where two is the administration,
Mhm.
which is the ordinance shall be administered by the Oxford Fire Department chief and or designee. And I put and the village of Oxford. So that way, if for some reason the police officer's going by and there's something going on, they have the authority to, you know, interject as well. And or myself, I'm out there and I see some lit going on, but I have not seen part of the enforcement administration. 2B is like the one you referred to. The mobile food permit, that, I just find it hard, the description of the proposed events and description of all locations where the mobile food establishment will be parked and providing services and where dining areas will be located and in parking lot, how the service dining areas will be delineated for safety purposes. I suppose some of these might have regular routes or regular, they know what events they're going to, but for them to show up in March and list every parking lot they're gonna be in for the next 9 months, seems like a tall task. I think we're fine with getting them the permit, the signed and completed application form, and then other stuff down, the permission from the property owners, everything else in there seems fine, but I don't know, if the ones that have been approved now, I don't know how they show up and list every event they're gonna be at going out 2, 3, 4 months. That way if somebody calls and says, oh, hey, we want you to come over here next week, they can't. I mean, I don't know if that would be something reasonable or not. The other thing is just adding the village occupancy into the, under this, kind of like administration, under suspension or revocation, things like that, adding this in along with the fire chief, as far as so we're able to see violations and do something about it. That's about it.
well, how has it worked in the township?
Come on.
Yeah. I think it would be good to hear how.
As Jack walks up there, it was my intention that the language was supposed to be the same, so we could, the approval would be interchangeable between the village and the township.
Correct.
And now we're messing with language.
The inspection's the same though.
Okay.
That's fine. Jack Curtis, Township Supervisor, Oxford. First off, the one you mentioned up north of town, we've been wrestling with that individual for almost 8 months now. It is now a permanent restaurant, if you will, where they've brought in picnic tables in, they're cooking and smoking meat outside. In that ordinance, there is no time limit on how long a food truck can sit in an area. And I'm gonna suggest that you put that in your ordinance, as we are gonna redo our ordinance to add that. The outside cooking stuff, you can have a guy with a small pizza oven or a gal with a big giant smoker, and they are cooking outside. So the intent of a food truck is not being met. You know, I can just throw up a tent and start cooking. It's worked real well. The biggest complaint is the inspection. We're trying to work with Oakland County right now. They go and they get a health department inspection. And then they go to Oxford and get a fire inspection. Then they go to Orion and they're required a fire inspection. Then they go to Metamora, they're required a fire inspection. So we're trying to get one tag fits all for the fire. The fire code is set by the state and everybody has to follow it, but a food truck has to go to each individual community to get a food truck sticker that says my propane tanks are safe, I don't cook under tents. These are the things that we're trying to commonize. The guy up north, he's emptying his waste into the septage of the building. He has now picnic tables out there. He cooks outside, so it's not working well up there. And he hasn't moved that trailer out of there in over 6 months, so we have no ordinance that says you can't stay there. But this ordinance, it works well. They just complain about having to get all of the community certifications from the fire department.
And our inspection, again, the fire department inspection is not changed at all. Ours and theirs is basically boilerplate the same.
It's the same, you know, Pete's been a fire chief. How long has it been the same? It's the state fire code that regulates the propane tank usage, the dates, the valves, and pretty much extinguisher dates on it, and that's about it.
So, Mr. Supervisor, you recommend that we do have a time component, because you're going to do that.
We are looking at it right now. I got a complaint as of Monday even. Now there's picnic tables and flower pots and all this stuff out there. And pretty soon he's gonna have a foundation in a commercial area and it should be a restaurant.
So if everything had to be put away on a routine basis, that wouldn't happen.
Correct.
And he's got a smoker out there that's hot.
Hot, it's as big as this whole front row. He's got 200 chickens on it today.
So again, that being said, luckily that's not downtown. But I wanted to address the alcohol. The biggest thing we had was the alcohol part in ours, where they don't have the social districts. We wanted to acknowledge that. And
That works well because like you said, you've got all the ones at Grave Cap, you've got here in the park and they're all social districts.
Yeah.
And they're not selling booze. They have to have a retail liquor license. You can't get one mobile.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just want to make sure that they're not on the hook for someone using alcohol in their dining area.
Yeah.
right.
That's adjacent to them, or they walk right up to order a taco while they're holding the beer from one of the local establishments, so that's not, we have to acknowledge it just because we have that special.
We have no social districts, so there's never an interchange with alcohol and
Yeah.
food in the public.
Yeah. The other ones are just pretty minor, other than the outside storage one that I just wondered about. And then my one envisioned was the pizza one who actually cooks outside. I don't know if they couldn't cook inside ever, or if they bother cooking outside. So, and for that reason, and it just so happened that I've only seen it at Grave Cap Brewery, and Tom and Teresa Roble came in to see me specifically about some of this, and I sent them this ordinance just as a heads up, sent Sick Pizza and to them, because they know they both are involved in food trucks. And they have some concerns about that kind of language, or they have concerns about the $100 fee, or if you want to quickly, it's a $200 fee for the inspections. But that's their concern, so that's their perspective. I just bring it to you.
From our perspective, if that food truck is inspected by a fire department and oriented to the same standards as ours, all we're doing is taking their $100 and they're making them drag their trailer or truck up to the fire department, charge them $100, and they okay it again. So we don't think that's fair.
Is that something you think, Jack, will be remedied at the state level at some point?
You know, we're trying to bring it to a county level right now,
At least a county.
because we have Orion that has the same issue right now, and Auburn Hills has the same issue. So we're all under the same fire code.
And it's logistics, right? Because if someone lives 20 miles away, they're gonna be up here in a month. They have to find time to drag their truck up here to
Yep.
make that appointment, to get it, to go back. And then they go, oh shoot, don't forget, we're gonna be in Orion in 2 weeks. Let's go over there and get our inspection over there. So now they're dragging their vehicle around for just those purposes.
Right.
The
So yes, if we found a way to,
the one truck you'll see is called the Food Dude, and he's really a sharp kid, an entrepreneur. And a lot of what we're doing now is based on what he sees. He goes to a community, you gotta pay $100. Well, you gotta drag your thing all the way down there and then drag it all the way back, and then 2 weeks later, you drag it down to your event, so.
after 8 hours.
Yeah. But the time limit as sitting, you guys don't have that problem. Most of these social districts, they're taking up parking for the restaurants, if you will. But ours is out in the middle of nowhere, and he's serving all the industry in that area and making a killing, but it's just, you now have set a precedence with somebody that has a food truck that's almost got a foundation,
Yeah,
so.
thank you so much for your insight, I appreciate
Okay.
that. All right. Do you want to come up? Thanks.
I have been, I'm just a citizen here, but the Michigan Fire Prevention Society and Inspector Society has been working for the last couple of years through there, because they're obviously the ones that are doing inspections, so they're working, this is through the entire Southeast Michigan group, which is Macomb, Oakland, Wayne County. They're working on it so that if someone down in Grosse Pointe sticks a sticker on it, does an inspection and sticks it, then, communities they go to, they would recognize that sticker and it's good to go. So it is in process, they have been working, so I'm not sure what's happened this year, but they're working on it.
That'd be great, thank you. Lori?
I was just saying setting a time frame makes a lot of sense for that, but I don't know if it necessarily has to be a single day.
Maybe put no overnight, cannot be left on a thing overnight, maybe, I don't know.
I'm wondering, like, we don't have a lot of events that go the whole weekend, but it doesn't mean we won't in the future. I mean, with the things county and the DDA have been doing, like, what if we have some sort of event that lasts from Friday through Sunday, and somebody was like, hey, this is so difficult to leave, or I live 2 hours from here. What if I leave it on site? So, my thought is that something we should consider having like a few days limit?
For instance, like I said, the beach up there, Oxford Lake
Yeah.
subdivision, they might have a truck that stays there all day. Friday night, Saturday was, leave Saturday night at midnight or something, so they're there a day and a half.
Would that go into this ordinance, or is that like our special event application, or is it both? or-
Well, that's the other thing I mentioned in the memo. I think I only sent it to you, Kelsey, I forgot, that I don't include it in the packet.
It was in there.
Oh, was it? Okay, good. In the past, when someone would talk about food trucks, our definition of a special event application, just working from a tenant concession trailer kind of fell under the special event application required. So, but again, I've looked at it since that's come around, it was on private property. Again, if someone's food truck gonna be in their backyard for an open house, then it wouldn't be. It was only if it was gonna be a food truck or a concession trailer on the public property, the village property, then I would say, yeah, then you would need this. And none of them really have come to that point and asked, but I've had a couple inquiries about it.
Yeah,
So I think we would maybe want to amend, or just, it's not in the ordinance itself, the special event application.
Right.
It was more in the paper directly.
So we have to think about this time component, and make it logical.
yeah, I'd like to postpone the second reading till the next meeting, so we have a
this
little
is
bit more time to look into this.
It's an
again,
interesting
right?
question. It's interesting.
You're gonna run into the same kind of issue, I think, with people parking their trucks for extended
Right.
periods of time,
Okay.
So if council's agreeable,
You have a motion to approve right now, don't you, or already? You get discussion going?
that's true. true. I
Yeah.
guess can I amend my motion that's on the table?
Or you could
would you
just
like me to
rescind your
rescind it?
motion, rescind the second, and start over.
Okay, to move to rescind the second and then start over is the cleanest way.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move to rescind the motion to approve the second reading.
Support.
A motion made by Cook, supported by Kemp. Can I do a voice vote for
Yes.
that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any nay? Motion carries.
And now you can do a different.
So then I'll move to postpone the second reading of the ordinance 420 for the food truck, mobile food establishment ordinance until the next regular meeting of village council.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Forgeau. All those in favor say aye. Aye, any nay? Motion carries.
Question, so you say postpone, so would you like us to try to have it together and something in front of you for a second reading again next month?
Yes,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
That's what I thought.
and I'll talk to you about it. I just have some questions though.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on to 8D, the crosswalk design at Burdick and Pleasant and at Pontiac Street and Oxford Elementary.
Okay, and I tried to encompass it in a memo I sent about the request for the second look, which, part of the reason that was outside of our expectations on the scope and cost were because the scope was enlarged, because I thought, well, that's bad, and we should probably do that corner too, but that really wasn't what they asked for.
Right.
So I did go back and get with Charter Engineering and read that they tried to scale the scope back, maybe do by having some of the topo survey done by Kennedy, is gonna save some money as well. So, we're looking at a design, engineering, and topo survey for not to exceed the price of $3,000. That was drastically lower, it was 16 before. So I think that's more in line with when we talked about this through our budget workshops, I was estimating around $10,000. Not knowing that everything was installed in, I didn't have anything figured in for signage and striping and stuff, but just the concrete work and things like that, removal. And so based on, I see the email from, I copied the email from Jim Sharp there, he's estimating it'd be between 12 and 15 for both locations. And again, that was about 30 before, and the estimate, again, the estimate was pretty high, and the estimates, our estimates.
Yep.
But I think we should at least go forward at that price, if it's more reasonable now, get the design and engineering done, get them up to bid and see what happens.
Yeah, I think especially the crosswalk at West Burdick and Pleasant is necessary. Every day I see people running across the road there. And it's difficult with traffic, and so the crosswalk will really help just get everybody going in the same spot, and just for drivers to be aware of pedestrians crossing there, so. Does council have any questions?
Yeah, I do. So this design though does not include like, I guess kind of like the push button type lights or anything?
No, it'll only be the required markings on the pavement, and then the crosswalk signage, and that's what our DPW is buying and installing those. So that, his 12 to 15,000 didn't include that, because typically our DPW buys and installs their own street signs. And so that would be done in-house, so it wouldn't include that amount. But yeah, it would be the required signage right at the crosswalk, and I think it's 150 feet back or 500 feet back. But Don knows the number, we have to have crosswalk head signage, one in each direction. The one on the south end will end up being out in the township, we'd have to deal with the township and the road commission, who did the one coming northbound on Pontiac, south of the school. So that'd have to be a collaboration, because of if the crosswalk's right by OES there, by the time you have the warning sign back 500 feet, wherever you're up in the township.
Didn't you put this on a while ago? I remember Mike talking.
We talked about it, yeah, heck, it was snowing when we were out there visiting the principal, that's how long we've been looking at this. It was probably either before or right after Christmas, it was snowing when we looked at that on one for OES. But if we do put one there, the warning sign would be out in the township, we'd have to work with Jack and the road commission to get that.
And we have the other ones that we've been working on. They're gaining speed too. The ones on Lakeville Road, the goat path for Bay Point Drive and by Willow Lake there.
Yeah, those will both be great additions too, very much needed. When we request proposals, could we have them bid separately and together? So if we only have a budget to do one of the crosswalks, we can see,
Yeah.
would that be, is that
We
gonna?
could just say, listen,
Break them up.
break them up, say, give us your quote for crosswalk A and crosswalk B.
Just have them broken out
Yeah, and then cross,
And
and
then-
then
and
both
then
of them
obviously,
together,
right,
because they might give a better deal if you
Right.
do both.
for mobile.
But then the village is also, in this price, the village is responsible for construction administration as well as surveying or, I guess, commissioning afterwards?
The inspection, we may have to have Jim or somebody come out, like Jim said, Jim Wright, Jim Sharp, I mean, he could, if somebody knows ADA, they could go out and do the work properly, but I said, I want the design so we have something to hold them to. We have something to go back and say, well, you know, you're at 2% and the maximum is 1% on the slope coming down, so we need to have that in place, the design, and then we would then have to follow up. If it's not included, we want to do an inspection afterwards, but that might be just a couple $100.
Okay.
All right, I'll move to approve Sharp Engineering to perform the necessary survey and design work for the crosswalks on West Burdick and Pontiac Streets at a not to exceed price of $3,000. And also direct the village manager to solicit proposals for consideration at the September council meeting as discussed.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Cook, seconded by Nicosia. Any discussion? All those, or we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Nicosia,
Yes.
Bordeaux,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes, motion carries. Great, thank you. Mr. Burke?
It's a tight timeline to get it for September, but I'll do my best. It depends on
That's
the
fine.
turnaround, the topo, and the
Yeah.
design, right?
Yeah,
It's relatively
absolutely.
simple, but, from what Jim told me, but getting bids right now is not that easy.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Thank you for reaching out to someone else too on that to get the price down.
Yeah, pretty well.
All right, so next is 8E, our purchasing policy.
Yeah, Bob's memo from that he gave us last month is in the packet,
Yeah.
and lots of discussion, I think, in order. We talked briefly before the meeting, I know one of the topics was the local preference, how you guys want to address that maybe in the future, and whether, I think it should be either, instead of a shall, maybe an option.
Right.
And I think there's other areas Bob would like to see the overall
Yeah,
whole thing.
I think we need to take a look at, you know, the categories of costs, you know, it seem a little bit outdated.
Yep.
And given some of the, you know, the legal impacts on, you know, the enforceability of bid processes versus RFP processes. Jack, you guys may be doing more RFPs now than you do bid processes. A lot of communities are doing more requests for proposals than they are sealed bid processes. It seems like, I told Joe and the clerk that the three of us should probably sit down with the existing ordinance and based on my analysis memo, and just bring you back a proposed new ordinance, a proposed new purchasing ordinance with what we think should be the more logical guidelines. No one knows what they should be more than these two, given the day-to-day affairs. On the other hand, we do need your input going into that process on this, on some of the key factors, and one of them is that tag-along provision about assigning percentages, you know, based on local preferences, and I think we all know the history of that adoption. I think the percentages may be too high, and I think maybe it could be something that could be a May standard that you reserve the right to do that, but not shall do it.
Would that only be when it's like a sealed bid process?
Yes,
Because otherwise you can choose
right.
based on
Whatever.
other factors, so.
Yeah. Right. So I think we need to do some of that
Yeah.
for you first. Get you a redrafted proposed purchasing ordinance.
My thought is not to have a local preference, because I'd rather get whatever's the lowest bid, if that's what we want to go for, getting our constituents the best price. And so favoring the people who are paying for it versus favoring local business. That's just me, but.
Yeah, I mean, in some instances, when the number is large, you know, you take a large project and you get a $50,000 swing
Right.
that you're funding just because you're gonna pick, you know, the local provider.
like to see us lower the percentages as well as adding a cap to how much that would affect it. Say $3,000 maybe?
A cap on the impact?
Yes.
Like 5% no more, not to exceed
Not to
X
exceed,
amount of dollars
yes.
or something like that, or 3%.
So not to
or-
exceed an extra, a capped amount of money to the village. In other words, a not to exceed number that we would have to fund because we're employing this preference. Okay.
My thought is at bare minimum, we need the ability to override, and maybe like a majority vote to override that provision in the ordinance. Just because my thought is that obviously if it's a local preference, they are our constituents, and we want to make sure that if at all possible, we can keep the business local, right?
Right.
If it's a local company, local folks doing it. But I think that in that we have limited funds, and we're also responsibly, we have to spend that money responsibly, so we have to figure out a way to do that. So I like the idea of a cap too, as well on that.
Mr. Supervisor, you want to step up?
It was a good thought on the.
First night here,
Well, Joe and I.
Did you know you're being participating in some?
I made a deal with Kelsey. She started coming to mine, I'll start coming to hers. What happens? Contrary to your statement, we do all bids.
You do?
Yes, it takes it puts all the integrity into the bid, and we take the lowest number. But we have the first right of refusal on any bid. If a local is $5,000 off on a $500,000 project, we may take the local, but we go for the lowest bid. The safety path at the high school was just under bid by $40,000. So, we have to go with the lowest bid. Our procurement policy that we enacted says you seal bid everything, there's no chance for any sneaking around, any backdoor deals. It just keeps integrity in it, and the bottom line is, you're gonna save money.
Jack, do you qualify it as that we take the lowest qualified and responsive bid?
Yes.
So if you get you're asking for marbles and you get oranges.
You're not gonna get the bid.
Right.
What we do is at the bid opening, we declare everybody's price, and then our engineer goes through all the references, and then goes through all of the bid sheets to make sure the dollars are spent and called out correctly. A lot of times they'll miss inspection days, a lot of times they'll have 28 tons of 21 AA and it needs 60, and go, well, you're under there, and we won't take that bid. But it gives other people the opportunity to look at the bid and say, that's the best bid for the best price.
Do you have a threshold where you do seal bids? Do you have a number below that where you just get quotes?
Usually about $10,000. I mean, I have the authorization to do 3,500, but between the three of us, we could do close to 10 grand. And we're gonna repair the boardwalk on Drainer Road in front of the Blue House that's got the small boardwalk. Well, the guy went out there and looked at it and said, for $9,200, I can replace that. Well, by the time you go through a bid, somebody gets hurt walking on boards with nails sticking out of it. It's not worth the time. We just award the bid.
Okay.
The board still approves that expenditure of money before it's spent.
So we're glad to have your wealth of knowledge here, so I'm going to ask you one more question. Do you have a situation in your ordinance where you waive the bidding process because it's a sole source provider?
No.
So let's say we were working on our water plant and we've got all XYZ valves and we need a new XYZ valve. And it's important, to our schematics that we use the XYZ valve. So we only are going to go get an XYZ valve. We're not going to bid out the valve. Do you have any exceptions for that?
No, because you can buy XYZ valve and any certified XYZ valve installer could do it.
One might do it for 100, one might do it for 1,000. So you bid it out and you find out. And with the retention of, you have first right of refusal, you can still say, not qualified, not certified, got a better response time. We can get something done in 20 days versus 90 days. That may be a qualifier to say we want it done now and we're willing to pay that difference.
And if you only have one bidder,
We have one right now,
one bidder,
one bidder, and we're stuck on it.
probably the lowest.
It's not the lowest.
So you have situations where you don't
Yes.
get a lot of bids.
And currently, right now, we're budgeting those funds based on the single bidder's number, and then we are going to rebid it again. And what we do is, all of our bids go out on Mitten, MTIN, the website.
Right.
And we sometimes advertise it in the Oxford Leader because we know there are locals that are competent and can do it, but not always. But Mitten is our primary source.
Our threshold is 25 grand for sealed bids, and again, road goes through the same thing, bid tabs, public opening, they tabulate all the unit pricing and all that stuff provided to us, and that's what a lot of bidders who are second and third want to see, because they want to see the guy beat them out. What's their hauling rate, what's their tonnage rate, what's their asphalt rate, you know, they get that bid tab, break it down. But yeah, it's 25 grand is our threshold for that process.
God, Jack, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
No, that's very helpful.
Yeah, I like the township's approach. I do like.
I gotta tell you,
Especially with the sealed bid, it does give you the integrity, and people are gonna try to get their best price without seeing what other people are bidding or things escaping, so. Obviously, there's exceptions for goods and professional services, it's pretty different, so.
That's our only exception for that, for those, that threshold. The 25 grand is our sealed bid threshold.
so with that help, maybe we can get you something.
Yeah, I'm still not thrilled about the local preference, but we can talk about that further if you wanna put something in there, and then we can talk about it with the cap.
We don't have local preference.
Yeah, I think
And it's
what-
brought up a lot.
I think what people favor it, I mean, people want it or don't want it.
Well, for 40 grand, I don't care if you're local or,
Well, that's why, you know, like.
That's what we're saying, that's exactly right.
When Alice and I were talking to her today.
Are you gonna spend 40,000 more just so you can be local?
You could do
No.
5%, but no more than 3 grand.
Right, something small like
5% on
this,
a
but
tour-
still, when our budget is like so low, I mean, we're debating not doing crosswalks for $10,000, so
Yeah.
it's like we need every dollar.
So you employ it by discretion, you know, you just say, look, you know, this guy's 1,500 off on a $75,000 project, let's go local.
And you gotta do the opposite too. When you got a safety path out there, your engineer estimates to be 275 grand, and somebody shows up 120,
then
you can't go with that bidder.
you're
They-
looking
they've
at
missed
everything.
Right.
What's wrong with that bid?
Yeah, they missed
Right.
something.
Oh, yeah, there's always something.
Yeah,
You're gonna end up paying more,
yeah.
so.
Or have to do, get nothing and
Yeah,
then
you'll
you
have
have
to
a
pay
mess.
for it, that's for sure.
They go belly up and you're left with a
Usually
mess.
illegal.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's my.
thank you so much.
Yeah, that's
Appreciate it.
helpful. Any other questions, comments, feedback from council before we move on? Okay, so we'll look for something in the
Yeah.
future on that.
Great,
Thank you.
That was a good discussion.
Thanks for all your research on that too. Okay, next up, Mr. Wackel. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Well, we're not, Dave Weckel, anyone who wants to know who I am. We're not as far as we want to be. I don't like to place blame because it comes right back at me, but we are still having problems with Detroit Edison. And I did meet with Kelly and Joe on the site, and I think we had a misunderstanding with the lights. It's not the parking lot lights, it's the Edison poles. That's our issue. We have one that's in the parking right on Burdick Street, it has to be removed so that can be finished. We have the anchor lines that come into the sidewalk right by 19 Stanton, that's where we were standing and pointing around, and there's no pole there, showing on the drawing, well, there is not a pole. The pole is existing, but the anchor lines had to be moved, and only Edison will do that. I guess I think we're 28 feet deep. They have to be within 10, 12 feet of the pole. So we can't do that sidewalk. And entrance exit ramp into the parking lot. And the other two, the planner, Linda Lee, she wouldn't design the program until I had the east parking, or the east property line staked again for her. So she knew exactly where it was. So I had that done within a week in May. And here we are now. We still don't even have the contract for that work, even though she said she was going to send it to me last month. And I had hoped with contacts that were offered, I would see it. I did finally get a text from her today after I texted her at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when she starts. She works 6 to 2. And she said she would get it back to me today. And again, I don't have it, so I don't know. I couldn't tell if she meant sent or send. I showed Joe the text.
Cryptic.
Yeah, it was, that'd be welcome. I'd share it with everybody if you want to see it.
Sorry, who's Linda?
Linda Lee is the DTE planner.
Oh, from
Who I was
DTE.
very excited about because
Gotcha.
she was the first one out of 5 we've had on that project that looked like she's going to get right on it and get it all done for us. I still have the original work order and the drawings that were done, I think it's 2019, done a while ago. And I said, just use this work order and change the date. Nothing's changed. Parking lot's the same size, the poles are the same place, and one of the asphalt contractors wanted those put in before, and I understand why, because the trucks will tear the grade up. But as far as the parking lot lights, what we do is we put our sonotubes in ahead of time, and we run conduits between them, and then set the poles on after it's all graded and paved and the landscaping's done and makes it all pretty. But that's done not through Edison, that's through us actually.
So the Edison, and I think we did talk about the one out in Burdick in the parking space.
Yeah,
Which doesn't affect the footprint of the parking lot.
does not,
But
but
it affects the process, I get that.
well, it does not, except that it's in the string of poles that has to be removed to feed the house on the north side of Burdick, which is fed from our south property line, our southeast property line now. It's being rerouted. They're taking, I think there's 4 poles that are being taken out, put in 2 new poles to feed that house. And it's the only house that's on it. We can't come from the other direction because the Steve's landscaping business is in the way of any overhead lines. Can't go through his property underground or through his building, so there's only the one route. But I'm expecting one other bid yet this week, and I don't think it's fair to make that public knowledge, but I'm hoping that they're going to be flexible and they could do like the whole east side, all the curb and gutter. And that would clean that up that way. And then the west side where we can't do it was, I don't know, we could do all but about 12 feet probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say, right there where that one pole is, right?
Right.
And where one parking lot transitions to the other.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And I suppose we could just take the wire down on the pole that's in the pavement and leave the pole.
anchor wire.
Yeah, well, no, not just the anchor, the one that's in the parking bays. Take the wires off it and leave the pole, and they can come and get it later. Or we could just take a chainsaw and cut it down.
But as far as the footprint of the parking lot, all but about that 12 foot on the west side could go forward now.
Correct, yeah.
And you're hoping to get another bid this week?
Yeah, I expect it. Yeah, he confirmed last week, so.
So would that be an option you would like to do then? If that bid comes back and you like it?
If he's amicable, I think he will be.
12 foot?
Yeah, and even the first bidder, I think might be amicable now after there was some more conversation. He was very rigid originally on how he was going to do the project. And I said, well, I can't do some of this areas. They said, well, we'll have to charge you to remobilize, and it's gonna cost you this and that. And I said, you know,
You're local, you're not far away, where's the mobilization?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And they typically don't get it done the same day they're there anyway. And typically everyone seems to get pulled off on another job, right in the middle of your job, because you have to finish up one. They're under a time frame constraint. You know, our industry is not a lot of fun a lot of times. And I do like the bid process rather than a request for a proposal. There's no doubt what you're bidding that way. Rather than, and the other side of that is request for a proposal, to me means, okay, they're just asking you for information. They're gonna gather all the information and create their own bid for a proposal, or a bid, which you may not get it all in a request for a proposal. They may hold things back. There's a lot of ways to look at it, so I agree with Jack how they do it. And I don't know how Oxford got to that 10% level. I know it's not off, I should have probably talked last item. When I was involved on the boards here at Oxford, I remember it being 5%. I don't know if it ever was 10%. That's a lot.
5% for the village, 7 for the township, 5 for Michigan, and 3 for the US, I think would be good.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Yeah, well, I haven't been following closely lately. But anyway, that's where we stand. I still want it done, you know, this fall, so.
So if the other bid's in and it's amicable, you could go forward.
Yeah, I'll sign it, and I think that I've already talked to him about the crushed concrete or asphalt millings. He said, no problem. They stock asphalt millings and crushed concrete. We just have to get the MDOT certification from where they buy it from. I think that's what you said would have to be required. And then it may be even faster.
Question, comment?
Mr. Workle, I would like to hear an update from you at council every month at this, from here on out. But what can we expect to see accomplished before next month's meeting?
I don't know. I'll give you a list of things I'd like to see done. How about if I give you results? If you don't go by, I guess. I mean, I've been trying to get the front of the building landscape now for 2 months. Drawings were completed and submitted to the building department. They weren't approved because the feature was 2 inches too high based on our ordinance, in which I told the landscaper that they haven't revised their drawings.
I suppose I was asking particularly in terms of the parking lot.
Oh, okay. So what you'd like to know before the next meeting? That's in what, 2 weeks?
No, a month from now.
A month from now. Assuming that they could mobilize and do it, I'm assuming the curb and gutter is going to be done on the east side, and the entrances, which have already been poured, are all tied in.
I know that now we have residents on the very east side of the property, is that
Yes.
correct?
Well, there's residences on the east and the west.
I guess in terms of the fence that's there, can you kind of talk to me about the plans for?
Yeah, that fence is going to come down, and our landscaping has been approved to put 2 rows of arborvitae, and they're a special kind of arborvitae. They're very thick at the bottom, so it makes a very dense fence. They will not be arborvitaes like on Pleasant Street that were 4 foot tall and about 12 inches in diameter. These will be actually trees that need taken care of.
And they're all dead now.
Most of them were dead when they were put in.
Yeah.
So,
Because there's no water.
well, we got the DDA, good, you know, just as an aside, the DDA's been really good about going around and watering plants. I know they did it 20 years ago too. We had one DPW employee that was his whole job. I think his name was Keith. Remember that, Pete? Is his name Keith?
I don't remember.
You're almost as old as me, come on. Anyway, his whole job was downtown maintenance. He cleaned the streets and the sidewalks, flowered the watered the plants, and did really good for 2 or 3 years, and that was discontinued for whatever reason.
Yeah. We have an employee does basically the same, each morning, every morning, he's been.
Yeah, I mean, I see
watering
him,
plants, so,
I see him out every morning, taking care of everything.
There is no fence in the plan on the east side, though the plan, the site plan that was approved, there is no fence over there. It is green wall, it's the arborvitae stagger.
Right.
That fence was put up as a temporary fixture to give a better look from the neighborhood and look onto the open construction site.
Right. And I think, and that's kind of why I'm asking a little bit as well too, is just the general, with their property being right there, and having the construction for quite some time, I guess what's the general timeline for doing that? Is there any way to speed getting that set up?
If there was a way that I could have stopped COVID for one thing, that'd be one way. That was a huge hindrance for not just the parking lot, but for our business, and not just our business in Oxford, our business everywhere. I don't know how else I can speed it up. I talk to people every day, every week. Detroit Edison and Linda. I refrained from calling her boss because my electrician called her boss, and she did call back the next day, but she was real snooty about it. Didn't appreciate it.
The fact that you might do the east side, or because I want to bring it along a little bit. Look, if you could potentially do the east side curb and gutter, then that would be the part between the curb areas over to the east properties could be then finished.
Yes.
So that would help
Yes.
expedite the finishing on that east end. If the east side parking lot, also the curb and gutter is done, that's the last final touches, except perhaps a light pole coming in later. But the landscaping then would be able to be done.
It would look a lot better.
Yeah, especially from the dumpster out to Burdick.
Right.
That area that's most.
Yeah.
And I'm really asking just because, we have a property owner there as well too.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I've talked to him many a time.
well, hopefully the other bit, or you get some good bids and you get it rolling and it all works out.
I sure hope so.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't really want to get into like any kind of back and forth right now, so if you want to talk during public comment or after, do that. If you don't mind. Let's go to new business, a rezoning recommendation from the planning commission for 25 Dennison Street.
Okay, the recommendation and review letter that McKenna provided to the planning commission is in your packet. And the result of the planning commission was their recommendation to approve that it met the master plan. There was a couple folks there that night who just didn't like it for various reasons, increased traffic, one up and down the street perhaps. But it did meet, if you go out to Mario's letter, he did a very thorough review on it. So I think, in my mind, the planning commission did the correct thing in granting the request because it did meet the master plan and all the criteria. And just today, the one that was on your desk today from Emmanuel Church, this was handed delivered to our office this afternoon. So there was some input from them that I set on your desk. That was part of your packet. It was there to know. They were also there. Justin was there at the planning commission meeting as well that night and spoke on behalf of the church.
So the planning commission is recommending approval.
Yes.
Any questions or comments from council?
Council, you generally have 3 choices. You can accept the recommendation, reject the recommendation, or send the matter back because you need further information.
Thank you.
And Mario enumerates those points in 1 through 6 at the very end of that, his letter. Consistency with the amended Village of Oxford future land use plan, consistency with the 2016 Near West Side development plan, and various other items that he reviewed against.
Help me out here, because I didn't get a chance to drive over there. The parking lot just north of Dennison, that's obviously behind Centennial Park. And then the properties,
It's a corner of Hudson and Denison.
yep. So what's 042? Is that residential or is that are those businesses? Those are businesses, right?
Right here.
Just north, that's,
Just north of that, red dotted line, that's the
yeah,
financial services
financial
business.
plan.
Okay.
Yeah, 04-27-202, 038, that's the parcel ID. Yeah, that's at 19 or 20 dozen, I think it is, like that, 19 or 20, can't remember which side of it, maybe 22. That's that financial services building.
And so the area in red, is that like, that's a single family home right
Yep,
now
it's
that they
probably
want to make
single.
into a business?
Well, they want to rezone it. There is no plan for what their future plans or use are.
Okay.
But if you look at the page below that, there's the outlined area and future land use map. It's actually indicating that both sides of Hudson at the Denison intersection are eligible for that type of rezoning.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So this is a straight rezoning, this was not a contract conditional rezoning?
Okay.
Yeah, and it was
Where you would know the use.
no site plan approval or anything, just future land use recommends or.
They can do whatever is consistent with the new zone.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That helps me, thank you.
Which still does allow for some residential use, mixed
Right.
use and things like that.
Right.
Business in the first, residential upstairs perhaps.
I'll move to adopt, approve the planning commission's recommendations to the proposed rezoning of 25 Denison Street from R1 single family residential to the C1 transition zoning district. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay, any discussion from council? Questions, comments?
I mean, obviously, if somebody wants to turn this into something, it would still have to go through.
Yeah, any use that would require amendments to the building or the footprint of the building or any demolition would be a site plan. It could be, again, switched over to an office on the first floor and residential upstairs without having to go to site plan approval because if they're not modifying the building. But if they wanted to add on the building or they wanted to knock the building down, build something new, all those would go to the site plan approval process of the planning commission.
How does this affect the property directly to the east? Because
You mean
that's
his
still
uncle?
residential, right?
That would be his family.
Makes very tough things, Gary.
Well, it doesn't affect it on nothing. It doesn't affect or change anything until there's a change of use at the site, right? And we don't know if there's going to be a change of use, and if there's a change of use, we don't know what that might be. Right now, he's saying, look, I see in the future land use map that the village is recommending or planning and guiding this towards this type of a transition. I think I'd like to move it over to that right now, and then I assume, see what my options are down the road. This could be something simple as, this was discussed at the planning commission. I have not discussed with the applicant here all about this. Let's say the house is worth 200 the way it sits. You flip it to commercial, now it's worth 250. I don't know.
Right.
It could be something now, it's owned better, I can market it to sell it better.
Mhm.
We don't, there's no proposed use.
Yeah, we don't care really, I guess,
Yeah.
either, so, but just curious.
I'm not sure if I have.
Do you want to come up to the?
You're the applicant, by the way.
Yep,
Okay.
thanks for attending the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name's Robert Joel Guy. Thank you again for having me. I'm the property owner over there. I just wanted to bring up just a few points that I had for you guys to consider. Of course, it went away right when I came up here, but some of the points were already made, but the main reason is the master plan does call for that property in particular to be rezoned to a C1 transition into the future. So that would be the first piece. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the next piece would be physically located in the middle of C1 business core district, which would be kind of that parking right. I would say it ends, even on the maps, it ends right on our corner. And then residential would kind of start across the street, across Hudson, across the other side onto Denison there. So we're kind of on the corner there. My personal opinion is the way they designed C1 transition, I would imagine that's probably exactly what they designed it for, to go from heavy commercial to buffer to residential, which is physically exactly where we're located. The other thing that I would just add is the property to the north was also previously just a single-family home that was rezoned to C1 transition years ago. So just kind of trying to follow those footsteps as well, and that's kind of my 2 cents about the proximity and just kind of that little situation on the corner. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Makes sense. Any other discussion from council? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Bordeaux,
Yes.
Nicosia,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
9B, Oxford Lakes Labor Day Weekend Fireworks Display Permit Application.
It's an easy one.
Yeah, I think this is an annual.
Yeah, it's a repeat. Had their feedback from the fire department yet?
no, I thought that's why you were getting a call from BJ today.
No, it was something else. They haven't got anything. Well, Chief was on vacation last week. BJ was on vacation, I think, for 2 weeks, so he just got back yesterday. So the normal process is always obviously get proof from the fire department before it happens as well.
Move to approve the application for the 2023 permit for fireworks for the Oxford Lakes Labor Day weekend to be held on Sunday, September 3rd, 2023, with the rain date the next day on the 4th. As presented, subject to the fire department approval. And I think that's it.
Support?
Okay, motion made by Cook, seconded by Bordeaux. Any discussion?
Any Eagles this year?
You know, that was a pretty big issue.
Yeah, good. Okay, any other discussion questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. Thank you. 9C. We have a resignation from one of our planning commissioners, Michelle McClellan. So she needed to submit her resignation, and she still attended that last meeting, which was very kind. But Michelle's been, dedicated to our community for a really long time, has served in various positions, and been a great advocate for Oxford. So I'll move to accept the resignation with regret for Michelle McClellan from the Village Planning Commission.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Kemp. Any discussion? Did receive a application for potentially a new planning commissioner, so I'll sure do some contact, and maybe that'll be on the agenda for next time, so that'd be great. But yeah, thank you to Michelle. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. 9D, appointment of council member to the ZBA.
Well, was obviously the planning commission member for a year, and I don't know if she in some cases you can. Michelle is on the ZBA too.
Michelle was the representative from the planning commission to the ZBA.
Yeah, so the planning commission wants to figure out who their representative is.
Do we know when they meet?
Very rarely.
ZBA.
Once a year, if you're lucky.
There is a meeting next month, which is why somebody needs to be appointed tonight, and it's going to be like September 11th.
They don't meet
It's-
very often.
Yes, but it's not a complicated meeting either, so it will be quick.
I would be willing to volunteer.
Okay. Wonderful.
If you need.
Yes, we will take you. Thank you.
Higher.
Yeah.
So I'll email you my ZBA training package that I give to ZBA members.
Oh,
Okay.
And I just so happen to have an oath of office with your name on it, right?
Weird.
You weren't planning this, but I already emailed it to you.
Is there a
Yeah.
term ending on that, Terry, or is there a term ending?
It coincides with his.
Same with the
Right,
council,
right, with
so
his
that's
elected
the
position.
end of next year.
Right.
Yes.
not that he was
because
here.
he took over Ashley Ross's
Gotcha.
term.
Okay. So I'll move to appoint Jacob Nicosia to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Oxford, with the term ending the end of 2024,
November.
November 2024.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Cook, seconded by Kemp. Any discussion? Thank you very much for volunteering.
That'll probably be the only meeting you have next month.
Okay.
All goes well.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. Awesome. Okay, E, the 2024 lead and copper rules, work plan, Dennison and Park Street estimates.
So the map in there is the map we put together a couple years ago, and we sent it out to all the residents about where the newer water mains are that only have work to be done, replacing from the curb stop into the home. And then the red water mains on that map represent the water mains that are old, outdated water mains that will be replaced in full, including the lead connection at the water main over to the curb stop and from the curb stop into the home, which is what we did last year on Hudson Dennison. The green squiggly line there coming down Hudson and Dennison out to 24, that was my attempt to overwrite on this PDF. That's the work we did last year. So we talked about perhaps even doing a stretch of, so that line comes down there, that's the corner of Hudson and Dennison. If you took at that intersection and go west one block to Pontiac, that's the pricing we have to complete Dennison over to Pontiac. The other street right below that is Park Street, where it goes from Mechanic all the way west to Pontiac. Those are the two areas that we contemplated doing in 2024. They're different lengths, so that's different costs, so that's what's been prepared for you by road engineering in regards to those costs, so we can make a decision as to which one we'd like to do in 2024. So there's pricing for the water main work, and there's pricing for the road construction that is obviously required to tear up and replace the water main. The Dennison amount, if you look on the back of the page, the total Dennison, the shorter amount is estimated at $445,000, and then the Park Street from Mechanic to Pontiac is $821,000. That's the estimates, and of course, you know, they always have, there's a 20% contingency for the road work. Obviously, all the water main work and water service line work and everything is covered by the water fund. A portion of the road work is covered by the water fund too, because you need to tear up the road. It's just that portion that remains that you wouldn't have to do necessarily, that the road fund has to cover. So if a third or half of the road work on Dennison, perhaps, let's say it's $180,000, so about half of that could be covered by the water fund, and the other half would be covered by the local street fund. So that the bulk of it gets paid by the water fund, but there's some of it does have to be covered by the road fund, because you don't want to just pay half the road, right? So you get half like it is.
Yeah, gotcha.
We had that unexpected kind of issue last time, and I'm pretty sure I've asked you this 12 times already, but that's the only place we anticipate having something like that happening.
Well, I'm not sure if I remember what exact issue. There was many issues on the project. That's a large project, right?
Didn't we run into something in the middle?
Well, that was, yes, and that was apart from the exit out behind 5-1 building.
Yeah.
That part out to M24 that didn't require work because there was no water main there, but we did it because it didn't make sense to do all this work and leave 150 foot of old, nasty road bed. So when we got into that section, that's where we found a really bad and collapsing drain structure in the road that required to be replaced, and stuff that we didn't have figured in. But when you're digging around old streets and old structures, we kind of expected that. And then as we kind of crossed the parking lot on Hudson over to 3 South, which had to be reconnected because it was done in an odd way. Those old septic tanks and stuff, there was buildings in that parking lot years ago. So some of those things we kind of expected. These projects, either one, will be much simpler. There's very little curb and gutter work, only at the intersections where the ADA ramp would be. They're not curbs down both sides. It would be a little bit of aggregate for a few feet on each side. These would be a lot easier. That was a very difficult job. The closing of the entrances, the paving of the entrances in the parking lot, alternating the ins and outs, that was very difficult on the contractor. My suggestion would be to do the lesser one next year, to wrap up Dennison. Dennison is done then. We did the work on Park Street at the end, west end of Park Street last year. That was not involved with anything other than it just needed what it needed, right? It wasn't any watering work, so that was over and above.
That would be that right there, right?
No, west. So you're going north and south there.
Oh,
So that, from that point there, that gray line that we did last year, right where it comes down, that gray line comes down and turns to the right,
okay.
go left there over to Pontiac.
Moyer.
I should have put it on one of the sheets, but.
So, this is park,
Yep.
is this part in the park pricing, or is
No,
that something we
that's how
consider?
That's how the north and south.
That'd be
is how we
something
do.
entirely
That's
separate.
entirely separate, right?
Thank you.
So the east-west on Dennison, are we gonna do the, I guess, the street at the same time from the road funds, or is that?
Yes. So again, of the road work, as you tear up the road, you put in a new pipe, and then you cut across the road to run lines across that site. A lot of that work is covered by the water fund, because the water action and activities are what's causing the damage. There's some left over along the side that you can't use water funds on, because that's just, you don't want to leave it that way, right? You don't want to take 2/3 of your road and repave it, leave 1/3 of it junk.
Right.
So that leftover part has to be covered by the road fund.
Okay. And we have enough, or I guess, does the budget include the road fund in there, this price?
Well, so none of these are in our budget currently, because the budget, these wouldn't take place until next summer.
Okay.
We would budget for them. One of the things though we would have possibly do though is amend our budget, because to order ductile iron pipe right now, it's 6 months out sometimes. So it's something that we went, if we decide and get it spec'd out, we obviously don't know the length of pipe we need. We could order that pipe in December or November, get it bought, paid for, sitting at the pipe suppliers. So we know when we're ready to go in May, June, July, whatever next year, that we aren't gonna get stymied by the pipe. We had a long wait on fire hydrants on the last project as well. It was over 6 months for the fire hydrants. We didn't want to switch brands, because we wanted to have them the same throughout the village. So, yeah.
We do East Jordan.
Oh, yeah, East Jordan. Mueller, we could have, Mueller Brass or Mueller brand, we could have got sooner, but that would have been a change connections, change rent. So another thing we may need to, there'll only be a couple hydrants perhaps. We may want to order those and pay for those in advance as well.
I have a couple questions. So these, because there's lead goosenecks, we're placing the whole line into these people's houses.
Yes.
So there's gonna be a new water main down the road, new road on top, and the service lines connecting the water main into their house will be boring through the basement wall.
Yes.
And then replacing all of the landscaping and everything else that we disturb.
Yeah,
And that's, we have a contract there.
yes,
to do a good job with that,
and very
so.
little. I mean, he's very good. I mean, there's some work out front that he'll doctor up and smooth out, and our DPW comes in, rakes it clean and seeds, and it's worked well. I don't think we've had to replace any sidewalk or any bushes to date.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yes, he's very good at it.
But we are on the hook for restoration.
Yes,
Yeah.
any other restoration that we, he does his best work around those things to
Okay.
minimize that impact.
So for Dennison, we'd be doing 10 lead service line replacements. Park, we're getting 19, so
Yeah.
essentially double.
And basically what I did is I took the aerial and I didn't verify, someone may have already had one replaced from the curb stop into the home on their own a few years ago, we don't know. I could go back and pull up a permit, but I looked at all of them, they're all full replacements.
Right, okay.
A couple of those might fall off, but I wouldn't.
And then would we need to, how are we gonna pay for this? Are we gonna bond it, or is
No.
it like a loan? We have the money?
No, we have the money.
Do we need to increase the water rates to keep paying for these things? I mean, I kinda wanna do the Park Street, just because we're getting more homes lead-free.
Right. The only part the part that struggles financially would be the local street funds. We only get about $100,000 a year, and we use most of that money just in the day-to-day plowing, sweeping, and things like that. The half mil being increased a couple years ago brings us in around $60,000. So if we need 90,000 on Dennison here, 60 is already coming in from that village. You need a lot more than to cover that portion of the Park Street. So remember, if you recall, this year we're doing 50 homes from the curb stop in areas that the water mains already been replaced.
Right, yeah, just.
So we took a break this year for water main, so now switch to water main next year. Because again, the footage of water main is another thing we have to tackle, right?
Yeah.
So we're tackling a bunch of water main either way.
Yeah, and how old's the water main? And its useful life?
Oh, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 60, some 17 years, in some cases.
70
over.
years.
It's not so bad.
So-
You know, for six, but,
Right, I've seen pipes come out of the ground 100 years old.
yeah, me
Out west where it's dry or something. I haven't seen it, but I've seen pictures
too.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me rephrase that. Again, my only, is the local street fund.
Mm-hmm. Right, we need the money for the road,
Yes,
which you have to do at the same time as the water.
and so speaking of funding, if you recall, we had 2 of the marijuana places that were open last year with the state. Tallied it up at the end of the fiscal year. We got that funding in February of this year, and that was like 103,000.
Mhm.
We have currently, I think, 4 open, potentially a 5th one ready before the end of September fiscal year. So not knowing what per establishment cost or tax amount would be,
Mhm.
that will help get us a little bit ahead. We could earmark that money and put it off to local street funds.
Mhm.
We also have-
Revenues are up right now.
We also have some earmarked, so we're gonna set aside for our own parking lot, right?
Yeah, mhm. Okay.
Not the profits.
No.
Excise tax is down dramatically from last year.
Yeah.
The sales revenue
Yeah.
Revenue's up.
for recreational.
Well, we have some new ones coming in that the township approved that are gonna compete with ours, so we're gonna lose some
Yeah,
revenue
so we're
too,
gonna get a
so,
few of these for a few years, then they're gonna fall off.
yeah. Okay. So you're looking for,
Direction as to what one we're
Which
gonna
one?
have,
Which one to
which one
pursue.
we wanna have engineered and then put together. It won't go out to bid until probably January, February again, and we put them out to all the bid books. We had 6 bidders, I think, on our parking lot project. We had, I can't remember how many for our water line, but it was several, because again, it goes out like there's a lot of bid.
So you gotta pick which one you wanna pursue tonight.
Mhm.
And start down that road.
I was in the same thinking as Kelsey. I thought we got it when I was working with the more
And
this point in time.
The 19 homes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
if the water fund, if the local street fund doesn't have enough to fund it, then you transfer from your general fund into it.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
because the water fund is doing good. Again, we have another couple years, another bond recall. We've had 2 bonds in the last 2 or 3 years that were cost us $200,000 a year. That
They're
are
falling, they're falling.
Or those are gone,
Yeah.
right?
You
So
have
that's why.
you have another one that's gonna fall.
Yeah, a couple more years.
Yeah.
That's one we share with the DD, I think it's a couple more years. It's 29% DDA and 71% us, or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, but it is double though, right?
Again.
I mean,
It is.
Yeah, it's a lot more water main, a lot more homes.
A lot more driving road space that needs
Yeah.
to be fixed.
Again, if you did one year, you would probably do the following year.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like,
Mhm. No time like the present, I say we go for more, but that's me.
it's not getting cheaper to do it every year.
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Do you want a motion for that?
I think it'd be better.
able to just
During public comment, you can, which will be, I think, coming up soon. Thanks. Okay, I'll move to, let me figure out what I'm moving.
I didn't really give you a good memo on that one.
No worries. Okay, move to proceed with the lead service line, water main, and road project for Park Street. That's, Mechanic to Pontiac. Is there a second?
Yes, support.
Okay, so motion made by Cook, seconded by Bourgeois. Any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Cook,
Yes.
Nicosia,
yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Borgel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, the water plant filter tank painting and water power washing.
So this is one of those purchasing situations we dealt with. Luckily, these aren't anywhere near our sealed bid process. And this was some of the prices we gathered, you see on the very front page there from last Halloween, actually. We had to reach out and get them updated. Yeah, I had the updated ones in there. But there was 2 things. we have the tanks that stick up, the big square tanks stick through the roof on the water plant. You see that they're brown and the paint is peeling right off them, so we've been talking about them for a year or two. And then, when you had mentioned last fall, I think it was Kelsey, about, hey, what about washing our power washing our tower? Rudy went right out and got a price, I was surprised how low it was.
Yeah, the townships did a great job power washing their towers.
Yes.
There's the ugly village one. has all the
Yes, and
LG.
so we got a price for it last fall, but it was
Yeah.
kind of really too late to act on it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we do have that in there. And they dealt with some of these players in the past as well. The one thing I did leave this old sheet with the paint highlighting on it from last year. It gives us an idea of to clean the exterior. There was another one in here about maybe I did it for the complete painting. Oh, that was another page of that quote. Because in a couple of years, we're going to do the interior and exterior full painting and
That's expensive.
yeah, and I think the guy's price was only $55,000. I was surprised. We had an estimate a couple years ago, $125,000.
Mhm.
So basically, you have H2O towers with their painting price and Federal. And I did a little spreadsheet on the back
Yep.
that one happened to be lower on the painting, one happened to be lower on the power washing. Even if you put them together and you want to get them both to do it, you end up paying more. So by dividing it up, we save
That's
some money.
amazing.
And they can do the power washing right away, but the tanks, they want to wait till they want to be hot weather.
Right. Okay.
Won't be long.
Won't be long.
Any questions from council for motion on this one? Okay, I'm gonna move to direct the village manager to award the repainting of the 2 filter tanks to H2O Towers LLC for an amount not to exceed $6,750, and then award the power washing cleaning of the water tower to Bedawa Incorporated at an amount not to exceed $4,400. Is there a second?
Second.
Cook and Nicosia, any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Nicosia,
Yes.
Bourgeois,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes, motion carries, thank you. So 10, there's no items removed from consent agenda. 11 is public comment. So if anyone would like to address council, please feel free to step up to the podium. And would you like to step?
I just, when you were going back and forth about Park and Denison,
Okay,
I was like praying, because I live on Park.
okay,
So I'm right at Park and Mechanics, so.
okay. Did you write the letter earlier
No.
this year? Okay.
No, because I didn't know, I just read
Yes.
this on Facebook that the meeting was tonight and such.
So you're happy right now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes. I have a lot of landscaping, so I just was wondering about that. Do they bore in?
Yeah.
Is that, okay, cool.
He'll dig down in the front somewhere to get down and get it over into there, but like I said, I don't think I know we haven't had to replace any shrubs to date, and he's done.
You'll know where it happened, but it won't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it won't require.
We haven't replaced any shrubs or sidewalk, and he's doing 50 of them this year, and he's already done probably another 50 or so, 60 total
It
in the
does a
last
good
couple
job.
of years.
It does a really good job.
Very
Yeah.
conscientious, just good contractor, we're keeping.
And then you redo the road after, that's all part of that.
Yeah, now, let me break back and step back on that. The contractor that I'm referring to is one that's going around doing them, the individual ones. He won't be bidding on this large project, so he won't be the one doing that work.
Right.
That would be the larger contractor, like Lasher Waldorf did all the other ones. Again, they only did about 8 or 9 on this project. But yeah, they're all responsible for it. They're responsible for the restoration and everything in that project,
Yeah, everything will be put back just like it was, so.
Yeah.
or better in some cases.
Yeah, I was gonna say better than Park is right now.
Yes, yeah, the road will be put back much better, that'll be huge.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else for public comment? Kelly?
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to make a comment on the Weckel update. So the whole reason for that meeting is because the DDA did bring somebody interested in purchasing the second floor of the Weckel property that we actually sought out to bring to Mr. Weckel. So we are really trying to work with him and fill those spaces to help out as much as we can. Within that discussion, a contractor was able to come down and meet with Joe, myself, and Mr. Weckel that day about the parking lot. And it was after discussing all of it, that a recommendation to move forward would be that week to at least sign the contract and get on their schedule, because at this point in time, they're at mid-September for scheduling. So if the contract was not signed that week, then we would be pushing out further than that. And we know that if we get into October, we're then facing weather again, just like we were last year. So again, the project would not be done. This is more than just a back and forth and us wanting a project done. We have an event center that's about to open this winter, and we really need that parking. It is crucial to the downtown businesses that are already there and existing, especially in that area, that we have additional parking so that their businesses don't suffer. If we go back to the bid process, like Mr. Weckel mentioned tonight, then we will not have this done. We should have had a signed contract 3 weeks ago with this company that he contacted. This was not somebody that we contacted. And at least gotten on their schedule so that we could move forward with this project. We also asked that the light poles, to make sure that those were purchased and on order, because we know that things are so backed up, and those have not been ordered. So I think that we need to be pushing harder, and we need to be having things in writing to be holding people accountable to get this project done, and that's for the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Okay. We'll move on then to committee reports. Noda, Lori, any updates?
No July meetings, so
Okay.
I have one next.
Great, thank you. Planning Commission, Cable Commission, I know Mo's absent. Any updates, Mr. Midori, you want to share on those two?
No, the planning commission just had that one item about the rezoning issue.
Yep. Great, thank you. DDA, Dr. Westbrook, would you like to step up and give an update for me on that one? Appreciate it.
For sure. DDA has been quite busy. If you have not gone and seen behind Red Naps in that Northeast Quad, please go after this because it'll be lit up. So we did a skyline lighting on the back as well as the drape lighting. Everything is finished except for just the center arch that says Downtown Oxford, and that should be in by next week. But the remainder of the stamped concrete went in yesterday, so it looks really nice, and we went over and placed the furniture. My two staff members and myself went out and did all of the mulching, and it looks really, really nice over there. We are cleaning up a couple more areas. We were outside today, just moving some things around, scooting some bike racks, just trying to make the walkability a little bit nicer. We have 2 more concerts and 2 more markets left. And we have 2 new events coming up. We have the Lake Orion Oxford Tailgate. That's coming up on September 8th in Washington Square. That's going to be a great event to bring business downtown. And then we also are having our Charlie Bar Crawl, and that is a Stronger Together with Lake Orion. So you'll see sales coming up on Friday. Those will go live. And then we have Trolley is running consistently, so still that Friday and Saturdays. And we have had huge feedback for our Scarecrow Fest coming up on October 1st. And we actually had to add in another vendor space because we already had 50 people sign up to be vendors. So we anticipate that event being absolutely huge. And we're going to look to run the trolley to the Oxford Market area for additional parking since we don't have enough downtown currently. Everything else is going great. We're still applying for additional grants and should find out about the METC grant. That's the really large one in early September is what we're being told. That's it.
Thank you so much, I appreciate that. Holly and Trail?
No July meeting.
No July, okay. Let's see, manager, staff, and attorney report, Mr. Midori?
Just a couple things, but Donna Brantley sent me a picture today, late this afternoon. We did a water line replacement on North Glassby from the curb stop in, because that's already been replaced. 2 sections of the pipe had holes in them about the size of the pinky. So, when we did our water reliability study, you produce 10 million gallons of water, but you build 9, you wonder where's it all going, right? We know there's sometimes small minor leaks here and there. This was pretty sizable, the ground was wet outside the home, but that's those old galvanized lines, so throughout this process, by getting rid of those, it's helping the flow of the house, so get much better flow, as well as us tightening up the system. That's going well. I was approached, gentlemen, I think it was today or yesterday, a few years ago, there was a veteran suicide awareness project called a Rock Pack. They walked down Pier Road. He approached me, he just wanted to give out a few flyers, and he asked about putting a flyer in Centennial Park for about a week. So I just didn't want to conflict with anything going on in Centennial Park at that time. There wasn't, probably well, Labor Day weekend. I think September 16th is the date of the event. I think it's an important event, so I was going to give you permission to put the flyer up over, or a banner up about their event in the park. Any issue with that. And then there was a note on here, I think Terry put it on, or maybe I did last month, about the ballot box outside the village offices. I've been in back and forth with Rick Wright about state elections, the drop boxes and things like that, and he asked about putting one out here. The state would cover the cost, A, the drop box, and B, the monitoring cameras and equipment to go with it. Obviously, we're a precinct here, and it's a given that we would allow the drop box here, I assume. But that they handle the elections, they handle the user room as the precinct, that would be the spot, and they would handle that, and the state would handle it.
Clerk Wright is very on top of things. I'm assuming they'll be clear sighted because the confusion could be we are the village of Oxford, but another precinct in the township votes here.
I don't know what the rules are. I'm sure there's rules that the state election board of elections has in place.
Because I could see
You only, drop boxes.
village voters.
And I don't know if it matters. If you put them in there, they take them back.
As
And
long
maybe
as
then
they all
sort
vote
them.
the
I don't
same
know. I don't know the
lot.
process.
Well, speaking from the clerk's position, that happens all the time. Even when you don't have drop boxes, things go to the wrong precinct, and they have a process for that. So these drop boxes, though, I'm sure will be for any ballot.
Okay.
It's just that because this is a precinct area, for village voters to make it convenient for them, that would encourage them to drop their ballots here. I don't know the exact process because I'm not directly involved in elections right now, but that is something that they can handle very easily. Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you. Clerk Anika, any updates?
No, we're in audit prep time right now, so I guess some of you, or at least one of you that I know of has been getting some DocuSign things. They do, in their due diligence, send out requests for, fraud detection, processes and things of that nature. It's a random selection, so if you get tagged on something like that, it's not because they're singling you out, it's just that it's a random process and your name was pulled out of the hat. So if you have any questions, you can call me. I can run interference for you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Davis?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council comments, start down at the end.
First of all, thank you to Jacob for your new position on ZBA. So you didn't have to. And I meant to bring this up earlier, so I talked to you guys ahead of time. So I'm sorry to bring this on during comments. But as far as the memorial, and I know that the kids have been busy, and I know that when they're ready, they will come to us, but it's getting to be fall, and I was wondering if maybe next meeting we can discuss us just going with a small tree thing, like we had kind of talked about doing before. Not in their space, so it's not something that has to be taken up and redone, but wondering if we can talk about that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want that on the agenda?
Yeah, if we could put that on the agenda,
Great.
just
Yep.
something small.
Done.
It's a good time of year to do it, too.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. See ya.
Thanks for the ZBA. I do have a contact at NASA where we may be able to get a tree that's been around the moon. So I'll look into that as well too. Seems like it might be a really good opportunity for something like that. But they have to study it first, is kind of the thing. So I gotta figure out the timeline and whatnot.
Make sure it's not an alien.
That's the thing, right? So we'll see.
Tree man.
And it's 1 billion years old now.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
No comments, no? Okay. I just too, so I'm gonna give you credit for recognizing all that our little village does as far as, you know, our purchasing policies and our water main replacements, our road work, you know, we're doing a lot in the village. The DDA is a huge part of that. Obviously, the downtown, it looks absolutely amazing. Every time you go through it, it just gets better and better.
She's
So,
about the fun stuff.
yeah. So just kind of well done to everyone. I know we've had comments before that, you know, what are you doing? But we're actually doing quite a bit all the time. So, so I appreciate everyone. So with that, I'll leave it there and I'll